All right, you mob, welcome back to the fucking fuck show. I love the ones that start like that. Welcome back to the fucking fuck show. Okay, another scripted one, but hopefully I can make it through without so much stammering and stuttering and and on and sounding like a freaking idiot. No real updates. I literally recorded the last one yesterday, but I just had the bug tonight again to kind of sit down and record. So, shock horror. Karl put something in my head yesterday, and I kind of noodled on it all day, and then sat down to write and see if I could pull something out of it. And well, surprise, I could. So, henceforth we go, and I got episode 31 out of it. So, yeah, no real updates. There's a few kind of autumn updates, but we'll save that for when it kind of resolves itself naturally. Right now, no real autumn updates, which is good and bad because, yeah, this kind of deserves to be part of its own episode just because of what a fucking mess I think it's going to turn into. Sorry for the handling noise, y'all. Shock horror, your boy isn't ready with the mic, so... And despite Karl's best efforts, we're still into the piss. I don't know what she hates more, the sound of me taking a sippy sip of that drinky drink or the words of raw dog and leaving my mouth. So, oh, outstanding. Okay, so the note kind of here was, and I just jotted this down last night real quick when I was very, very, very drunk. It just kind of said, Karl and I's strange friendship. Sorry, we're dreaming of the Roadcaster duo where I will have a mute button and you guys don't have to listen to that anymore. What is this? Boy, howdy. Means more work for me, though, in the editing. But, yes, the one note I took down drunkenly last night was Karl and I's strange friendship. Actually, that's not true. I took down... I don't remember why I thought of this, which is annoying. I wish my drunken self would have elaborated on it, but it just said holding on to past relationships for the wrong reasons. Oh, sorry, y'all. Eyes are itchy. And then I had vengeance is God's alone, why I need to let go of anger and grudges against others. So those are just kind of future general ideas I have. And might do something with, but we do kind of get around to how I got to the jotting this note down. So we might as well just get ripping here and see what we see. Because, yeah, no real updates. What do you guys want to hear about my day at work? It was uneventful. I didn't do anything, and I basically played chauffeur today because there was all kinds of issues with Caillou's truck. So there you go. That's the update for the day, and I got done a little earlier than usual. And then there's all this autumn updates, but again, that can be in its own episode. This one is kind of just all Karl all the time. So here we go. Unfortunately for you all, though, I can't remember if this was like a special request from Karl or not, but we're going to pretend that it was, and that Karl specifically requested that I do an episode about this. But knowing her, I kind of feel like it wasn't, and this is just something that came to me that I thought would make an interesting podcast. So yeah, mentioned in the last episode there, 30, right around the middle of it, I kind of looked at my phone and realized that Karl had called me, and, I just assumed it was a pocket dial, because why the fuck would Karl ever call me? But what had happened was she got to the part in episode 29 where I said, Karl said I should call a friend, and I don't know if that's code for call her, because I'm a fucking idiot, so... She decided to answer that question by picking up the phone and calling me while she was out with the sweet senorita, her dog. So yeah, it turns out she very much wanted to, she was listening, she had finished listening to 29 while she was out with the sweet baby angel, her dog, and she had some thoughts that she wanted to discuss with me, and pseudo lecture's the wrong word, but I definitely did get a lecture or two last night, unintentionally, especially about omega-3s somehow. I very much remember that part of the conversation. But yeah, she wanted to have a whole discussion about a lot of the things I had said in episode 29, which, kind of very quickly became hilarious, at least for me, because all these things that she wanted to talk about and kind of break down and give me, like, analyze for me and give me her point of view on, I had kind of come around on most of them and addressed them in one form or another in recording episode 30. So she kind of kept bringing all these things up, and I was like, oh, that's so funny. I talked about that on episode 30 and kind of got across the finish line for that. And, I talked about that in 30, and, I've kind of changed my viewpoint on it and blah, blah, blah. So it's a lot of that and her going, fuck. So regardless of Karl coming in hot and wanting to have an aggressive debate, which, I'm not complaining about. Like, I really enjoy Karl and I's, like, spirited debates and kind of discussions about the faith, and where I'm being a stick in the mud and she's looking at me going like, man, you're wrong and you don't even realize why you're wrong. So let me educate you. But otherwise it was a very good little chat about kind of obstacles I've placed in my own path on my faith journey as well. Karl kind of shared a few of her various struggles that she's been dealing with, and sorry, I just received a very interesting Snapchat. Struggles that kind of Karl's gone through and goes through, which was very nice to hear, because it's very easy to look at Karl and kind of how she talks to me and just kind of assume like, oh, she's got it all put together, she's got it all figured out. And that's not to say I would ever want her to be like struggling or having a hard time with anything. It's just nice to know that I am not alone, and Karl is just as human as me and kind of struggles with some of the same things that I do, not all of them. And she's much farther down the path, honestly, with a lot of these struggles. So she has the benefit of hindsight when we're talking about them and can kind of go like, look, man, here's what I did. I'm not saying it'll work for you, but it might be something to try out. Oh my gosh. Guys, I can't breathe. What's wrong with my lungs? I ate so much fucking KFC for dinner, y'all. And this KFC out here is not terrible, but the boy running the till friggin' fucked up. And I knew he did because my shit was like $4 more than it usually is. And I asked for like a side of gravy, and I get home and he basically gave me like a gallon of gravy for my popcorn chicken. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? So it went in the trash, but anyway. Oh, brain fart here. It was but it was kind of like a very much an anomaly of a phone call, just because it was an hour and 20-minute call, and like at no point did I kind of get that autistic, mentally ill, overwhelming urge to like hang up the phone, because I can't be multitasking, and I feel like I need to be doing something else, and I can't, because I need to be giving all my attention to this conversation. But I'm not really like a phone call person. And I know that's such like a millennial thing to say, like, oh, don't call me. It's not like I'll have a panic attack. I just would prefer not to talk on the phone if I have to, because it's kind of my guy brain being like, okay, well, we're locked into one task now and can't do anything else. And I hate that. Need to be able to multitask. Even like recording the podcast is that kind of task in my brain. And it's very hard for me to kind of just sit still and sit here for an hour and talk and just not get distracted. And as I look at my phone right now and blah, 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 right? Like that's, y'all have lived through the dead air and know exactly what I'm talking about, where I will lose my train of thought because I'm thinking about something else or doing something else. And that's just guy brain kind of wanting to be like, like right now I'm checking Instagram, and that, there you go, it's guy brain. I just want to multitask, and I can't, because I'm locked into this one task that I have to give all my attention to. So that's kind of why phone calls aren't my favorite, and kind of why I like voice notes, right? Because I can listen in my own time, reply in my own time, and it's kind of like we're having a conversation with a little bit of a delay, depending on how excuse me, how fast we are replying. But this conversation was very much an anomaly in that I didn't immediately within 10 minutes want to hang up because I was getting antsy to like do something else. So very, very rare occurrence to happen, but it might be the meds, and maybe I'm maturing as an adult and just understanding phone calls have to happen, or maybe the vibes of the conversation were just so immaculate I couldn't end the call. But that's all very long-winded. That long-winded story aside, what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the conversation, we got to yarning about how strange our friendship is, and she mentioned that I should talk about it on the show, and I think she was half joking. So hopefully not, Senorita, because I turned this into a full episode, which I will not post without your permission, because honestly, this is a full episode talking about you. So, so here we are, though, talking about it. And it's kind of good that this kind of got picked out for me or that a topic presented itself, basically, because I really wasn't sure kind of how to follow 30 with it being such a faith-heavy episode, because I know that's not the vibe of the show, right? That's not normally what we talk about. Normally, it's a lot of me getting shit-faced and shit-talking. So to sit here and spend one of the longer ones, honestly, it was 53 minutes, talking about faith and my struggles with that and very personal stuff in my faith journey, that's very much not on brand for the show. We're very, very not that. And, I've always kind of been, not always kind of, I have been a Christian since I started the show, and I mentioned it in the first episode, I think, but it's just kind of been in the background because it's not something I want to talk about. And we kind of got to the point of this at the end of the episode there last night, where I was kind of like, it's almost a sense of shame, right? That I would worry what people think about me, that I am a Christian, and I'm so willing to talk about it because today's kind of culture really is more like, well, it's a bad thing to be a Christian and to live Christianly and to follow Jesus, and it's something that you shouldn't be proud of. Our culture just kind of doesn't celebrate that anymore. And while I agree that everybody should kind of be free to choose their own path the way God intended, at the same time, I think maybe a return to some of these more Christian values would not be the worst thing in the world for some of these people, honestly, and it might help unfuck the world a little bit, but that is just me. So anyway, turns out that the answer to posting such a faith-heavy episode is to record another faith-heavy episode. So, surprise, motherfuckers, 2 in a row, but almost 3 in a row. I feel like 29 got a little faithy at the end, but there's really no way to talk about Karl and I's friendship without talking about God's timing and how the Holy Spirit can move through us if we let Him, and what can happen when you just kind of submit and obey and follow God's leading. And, there's also this spooky weirdness side to this whole thing, at least from my perspective, because Karl kind of understands what all is happening here, whereas to me, it just kind of seems spooky and weird. So I guess the answer to a faith-heavy episode is a faith-heavy episode. So I'm not going to say we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming because, I enjoy talking about this stuff and kind of noodling it out. And it's a nice change of pace from sitting here whining about women and how my own choices led me to a less than desirable outcome that I fully could have foreseen if I had stopped for a minute and thought. But this is also very interesting, and I still am trying to split the difference here and find a way to balance the Christian life versus some of the thing. I'm not doing very well, guys. We're that's a story for another day. But we are going to take a little bit of an early intermission here, and I will be right back with you, Mob. There we go. Oh, no, I screwed the time bar up. Son of a biscuit. Anyway, I guess we can just keep going. So, yeah, sorry for the early intermission. I had to address something on the old cell phone telephone that needed my full attention. But anyway, moving right back into the shit show. So, there's probably a little bit of backstory in order here because I've kind of told parts of how Karl and I met over the episodes, but might as well just kind of sit down and get the whole thing out. And, I'm going to try and tell this to the best of my ability. I'm congested again tonight, guys, so very, very sorry if I sound like a sniffly monster, especially to Karl. She hates it so much. What did she say? This mic sounds like ASMR, which is like ASMR. But anyway, yeah, I'll try and recollect this to the best of my ability because Karl and I's initial meeting happened very much in the dark days of my 20s when I was fully on the way to becoming a rage-filled alcoholic, and we moved away from that. We're no longer rage-filled, but if you listen to Karl, we are fully on the way to a high-speed exit into alcohol town. Which I disagree with, and I do and I don't some days. Anyway, that's a deeper discussion for another episode. But anyway, so yeah, this all happened back in 2010. From what I can reconstruct, just kind of based on Facebook Messenger and stuff. So again, 13 years ago in the dark days of me being a absolute piss-soaked drunk. So let's bear with me here as I try and remember this. Karl honestly might remember this a little bit better than me, but from what I can remember, Karl was having a party at her parents' house, and just kind of like small world 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. I worked with a guy, Riley, who knew her and just invited me to tag along to this party. And like the party itself really isn't that memorable. I remember I didn't have a good time and I left early because as much as I was a waste case, fucking drunk back then. Oops. I much preferred to be at the bar than I did at a party. But I very vaguely remember Riley introducing me to Karl and walking away from that interaction thinking she was kind of rude, honestly, because I feel like she was rude to me, which whatever, I'm a stranger and probably older at that time, so I really didn't fit in, but that was kind of that, right? Like I went to this party at her parents' house with Riley, and then I had to go and look because I messaged her after that party because, I thought, I can't fucking breathe. I'm so sorry, guys. I had to go and look because, I had messaged her after that party because, I thought she was cute and, it's very single back then. But nothing came of it. And it was definitely because, like, I had no riz back then, as the kids say. I wasn't able to rizm with the tism like I am now. And I probably reeked of desperation at that point in my life. So, oh, how sort of far we've come. But so that was in 2010. So 13 years ago. And Karl and I didn't talk again until February of this year. And that's kind of where the spooky weirdness enters the picture. And I'm really kind of hoping I can do this justice because even trying to write it out, I kind of struggled to encapsulate it in words, but no, not Bumble. So with the creative license recording and being able to kind of vamp gives me, I kind of hope I can do this yarn justice because it sounds insane when you talk about it. At least to like a secular person. To another Christian, this would make a ton of sense. But like, because Karl understood exactly what I was saying as soon as I brought it up to her. But to a secular person, this would just be like, woo, Christian silliness. So, so back in January, the month, not the person, I got baptized. And we've kind of talked about this. And just as an aside, interestingly, that was kind of... Oh, very sorry. I'm really hoping the mic didn't grab that. So sorry, guys. I don't know what is wrong with my lungs, mouth, nose tonight. Anyway, as an aside, interestingly, that was kind of the starting point of where the slow decline began, and I started to move away from the church. But before all that sadness and kind of stuff we've noodled out a little bit already, after I'd been baptized, I had this like overwhelming urge to message Karl and invite her to my church. And like I knew Karl was a Christian because she would occasionally like sneak in a Christian post or meme or something on her Instagram story. So, I figured it couldn't hurt to ask, even if she was not a fully committed Christian. I had no idea, right? Like Karl and I haven't talked in 13 years. So who knows what kind of response I'm going to get from this beyond I know she kind of sometimes posts Christian content, and she's really stepped it up actually in the last couple months, which is very good for her. Good for you. And I definitely don't mean that in the condescending way. I just said it. But that's not the interesting part, right? Like that was just me reaching out to somebody I thought was a Christian who I had a tertiary connection with that I could be like, hey, we know each other. Can I talk to you about Christian stuff? Blah, blah, blah. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is kind of how this thought worked its way into my head and then didn't let go. And that was like over 2 weeks. I could not get this fucking thought out of my head. It came to me after I'd been baptized. Like it must have been like right after I got baptized, because I'm pretty sure the message I sent went out February 13th. Well, now I have to know. As we scroll all the way back here, February 12th, I would say, is when I sent that message. But that thought had definitely grabbed a hold of me at least 2 weeks prior to sending it. And the only reason I sent it, because normally there is no way I would reach out to a woman I don't know with an invitation to come to a strange new place. That just seems like the height of insanity to me. But after I got baptized, I had this thought, like, you should invite Karl to church. And I thought, well, what's the fucking point? She doesn't know me. I don't even know if she's fully a Christian. Like, there's blah, blah, blah. And then every day for 2 weeks, it was constantly in the back of my head, like, you need to message Karl. You need to message Karl. Why haven't you messaged Karl yet? Like, well, you need to message Karl. And finally, I'd had enough, honestly, because it was 2 weeks of this shit, and I just had to do it so I could stop thinking about it. So I sent her the message, blah, blah, blah. And it was very much like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. We met through Riley, so-and-so, blah, 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 all these years ago. I think you're a Christian. Just wanted to invite you to, come check out my church if you're kind of church homeless right now. But nothing really came of that message, because she's very happy at her church, and I can see why, having been there now. But what it did do is crack the door for us to start talking. That was the friendship icebreaker, if you will. Because I was kind of on the hunt for Christian friends at that time, because I was trying to sort of... Oh, hello. Oh my gosh, so many things. I was a fairly new baby Christian, because what is it? August, June, July, October, November, December. Months are hard. August, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. So that was 7 months into my little Christian journey. And I got baptized in January. And my salvation day is in October. So October 21st, I think. But I was just kind of looking for Christian friends and more mature Christians to kind of surround myself with, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And there's only so many times you can reach out to like the pastor and the assistant pastor before you're like, okay, I'm being an annoying nuisance here. I need to find somebody not in the leadership level at church that I can ask these questions to. So I was just kind of on the hunt for Christian friendos, and she never came to my church. I went to hers though, and she's trying to poach me, she said, that naughty little senorita. But yeah, like I said, it cracked the door for us to kind of start talking and open the door for that friendship that never would have happened otherwise, because I never, ever would have messaged her but for this. Because, and she actually kind of got upset when I said this the other day, but like, just the vibe Karl gives off, she's a very, very intimidating woman. And that's not like incel, strong women, blah, blah, blah. Like, Karl very much is a strong woman, which is something that drew me to her, because I like self-assuredness in a person. But she just kind of has that vibe that she won't take any shit and won't tolerate fools lightly. And I am often a fool, and people have to put up with my shit, as Karl is learning. So I never, ever would have messaged her but for the fact that we were both Christians. So, and it didn't really go anywhere from that. I think I sent her like a happy Easter, he is risen kind of deal. And then the memes started flowing, and memes are our universal language. A lot of people our age. I think I'm older than Karl, not by much, but I know I am. I just think it's not by much. But so the memes started flowing back and forth, and that is that door getting wedged that much wider. And then I finally got a little brazen and started asking her questions and trying to pick her little Christian brain for my silly little baby idiot brain. And eventually these questions turned into the discussions and debates I've come to enjoy so much. And then finally, it took fucking forever to get her across this finish line, but voice notes. For a woman who can call me and have our first phone call be an hour and 20 minutes, it was like pulling fucking teeth trying to get Karl to start sending voice notes. And even now I try not to send them, because I just don't want her to feel like obligated to reply with a voice note. She's right in the middle of something, because I know it's fucking annoying. When, somebody sends you a voice note and you're like, I have to fucking reply to this. But the moral of that gushing is, it's very, very cool how this whole, and again with the hand gestures when I do an audio only podcast, but this whole little Christian friendship and kind of pseudo mentorship started because I finally listened to an urge that I couldn't shake and wouldn't let go of me. And this is going somewhere, but but for a long time, like, I really didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just kind of my brain being its autistic self, and that was kind of that. Like, I had just latched on to a thought and couldn't let it go the way I do with, like, my hyperfixations and stuff. So I kind of was like, oh, well, Karl was just a hyperfixation, and this was a thought that, for whatever reason, the great autismo, my brain, had just kind of, like, hooked onto and couldn't let go until I did what it wanted. But much, much later in the friendship, this was a few months ago when I was trying to finish the church episode that became the church episode that I still haven't posted, that I might now that 30's gone up. We'll see. But Karl kind of made like this passing comment about, a little spelling mistake here, a little grammatical error. Way to go, hero. Karl had made this passing comment that it's oh man, I hate being congested when I do these because I forget to breathe. Yes. She had made this comment that it's so weird to her how that, like, anytime she feels something that's, like, laid on her heart, that she just has to tell me, or gets that same kind of urge to message me that I had, I inadvertently and unknowingly create some opening to start a conversation about whatever's on her mind, or just straight up message her with something, either exactly what she's been wanting to tell me or close enough that the conversation will lateral there nicely. So, I'm definitely not alone in the insane nagging that we've both kind of received to like be in contact with each other. And so yeah, and like Karl says, it's the Holy Spirit working through her, and I don't know enough to say one way or the other, honestly. I just kind of know that this is very clear evidence to me anyway of God working through each of us to kind of build each other up. And although a lot of the time, like, it is a very one-sided relationship, just because Karl's very often constantly like either trying to correct a bad habit of mine or teach me something, or like doing the verbal equivalent of spraying me with a water bottle to prevent bad behavior. Like, no, stop it. But it was very, it didn't like rock me or anything, but it was kind of shocking to hear that she has these same kind of like leadings from something. She would say it's the Holy Spirit. I don't know enough to know, but she gets these same leadings from something outside of her that she just will not let go. It happened to her, she said, on the weekend. After we had parted ways at her church, I went about my merry business, went home and packed and got ready to come out here. And she said she felt like so convicted that she should have made time to record an episode with me. And, we kind of talked about that, and there was time to do it. It would have kind of fucked my whole Sunday up. I would have had to leave way later. And I kind of would like to wait until I have the Roadcaster to do Karl's episode, because I don't want to have to record this and then have to splice together like a bunch of parts if we go over an hour, which I think we will, honestly. So I'd rather wait until I have the Roadcaster and can just kind of, fucking smack the mic. Idiot. Wait until I have the Roadcaster so I don't have to be splicing a bunch of shit together and trying to make it all combine nicely. Whereas with the Roadcaster, I can just hit record and we can record till we run out of storage space. But so yes, again, she felt that conviction and leading from the Holy Spirit to kind of be like, you should have done this. And who knows what would have came of it? I guess we'll never know now, because it's the end of the day Monday. But I'm very glad that I'm not alone in this like kind of weird, spooky, outside of myself urging to stay in touch with Karl and Karl to stay in touch with me. And she was saying this last night too. She's like, this is so out of character for me, because I'm not normally this pushy with somebody, and I don't normally like try and tell people what to do, and I just constantly get it from God or the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, like that I need to talk to you and I need to message you, and I don't normally message people this much as her and I talk. So, which like is such a normal thing for me to be just texting on and off throughout the day, every day, but I guess that's not for her. And who knows, maybe that's God just working through her, knowing how I need to communicate and just kind of forcing her out of her comfort zone and be like, no, work on his level. But again, I don't want it to be a one-sided relationship. I hope that someday Karl can kind of get something out of having this friendship with me, because I don't want to ever feel like I've taken advantage of her kindness or her willingness to kind of put up with my shit and try and teach me something or some things. So hopefully I can provide something in return for all she's kind of doing for me spiritually. So, and she'll downplay this and just say she's not doing anything, or maybe she'll say, thank you for acknowledging my greatness. I guess we won't know until she hears the episode. And then one of the funniest things she said last night was right at the end of the conversation, because I was saying something along those lines, like, thank you for putting up with my shit, basically. And she was like, well, since I can't date a project, I might as well adopt one, which like I should take offense to, but it's just too true and like too funny that like I don't know. I know I'm fucked up, and I know we talked about this on the last episode. I know I'm fucking up. So, is it really the end of the world that Karl just calls me a project? It really is not, because I kind of am a fucking project, to tell you the truth. I'm a work in progress. We all are. As Christians, nobody's perfect, and we're all, I think it's called sanctification, where we're just trying to become more like Jesus, but nobody will ever succeed, honestly, obviously, but it's supposed to be like a lifelong journey of trying to be like Jesus and better than we are and blah, 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 blah. Obviously, some of us do better at it than others, because I am fucking up, but yeah, so that's the weirdness of kind of Karl and I's friendship. One chance meeting 13 years ago led to me joining her at her church yesterday, and many conversations that have taught me like so much and led to a lot of, like, admittedly sometimes very painful convictions and realizations. And it's kind of cool to think about if you really drill down on it. Like, one chance meeting at a party that I never would have gone to but for getting invited by Riley randomly, from what I remember, led to this fellowship 10 years later. And that kind of seems to be how God kind of works in my life, is people from my past coming out of the woodwork years later and helping me grow as a Christian. Because, like, I never posted the church episode that wasn't, but it was Kayla that got me through the doors at my church. And I knew Kayla 10 fucking years ago. The same kind of time period I knew Karl, the dark days, right? Oh no. I gotta do something gross here, guys. Very sorry. It was frosty windy here today, so I'm a little congested, obviously, but this is kind of funny how God seems to work in my life, in that he would this is not the first time that somebody from my past has come back into my life as a Christian and I didn't know it, and kind of gotten me on the path. Kayla originally got me on the path. She knocked me onto the path just so unexpectedly. And then all the bad times happened, and then this friendship with Karl kind of started, and now it's like she is not so much nudging as she is hip checking me back onto the path. And it's just, the way God works is truly surprising sometimes, because, like, Karl is not who I'd have expected to lead me through the mess, kicking and screaming a little bit, but, like, candidly, she was not even on the list in my mind. Somebody who would pull me out of this worldly darkness that I've kind of thrown myself into and dragged me reluctantly back onto walking with Christ. Karl never would have even entered my mind. Like, I figured it would be somebody like the Swede or the Englishman or the sound guy or even like the worship pastor, because I've done a lot of pastoral counseling with her, and even like Dan or his wife or Kayla or Kyle, like anybody from the church. And it was so unexpected. Like, God worked through Karl, and she's the only one that got through to me when everybody was telling me what I was doing was wrong and I didn't want to fucking hear it. Karl was the one I listened to. And she's got me about 70% convinced that I need to give up the way I'm living currently and try it the other way. And kind of reading this back and talking about it, I don't want it to sound like, at least to Karl, that my faith journey is resting solely on her shoulders. I don't want her to take that responsibility on, because my faith journey and where I'm at in my walk with Christ begins and ends with me. So, as appreciative as I am that God sent or God was able to put Karl in the right place at the right time to be the one who could get through to me, I don't want her to feel like if I fall away or if I stumble or if I fail, that it's a reflection of her somehow, because it's not. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. And I just want to be very clear here to Karl specifically, that weight is not on you. My faults are my own and my choices are my own. And you can advise, and whether I listen or not is up to me. So that very serious topic aside, yeah, Karl is really just the only one who managed to say things in a way where I was like, hold up, wait a minute, that son of a bitch, I'm in. So don't ask me why, because I have no fucking explanation, honestly. She's saying all the same things that Dan and Kayla and Kyle and all these other people have told me. And for whatever reason, hearing it from Karl makes me stop and go, huh, maybe there's something to that. And just God's timing, putting the right person in the right place at the right time. So very, very, very cool. But yes, yeah, like I was saying here, like very, very, very cool to see how we can get used for kingdom purposes if we'll only surrender and obey. And this is something that I struggle with like so mightily, but this would have been one of the speech topics that I had for this thing that my church does, is what can happen when you stop and just obey. So if you just stop, surrender, and obey God or the Spirit's leading in your life. Because the example I was going to use was church mom. Church mom has never had this problem that I have. She just goes where she's told. And the Holy Spirit stopped her and said she needed to know me. And then a few weeks later said, now's the time to sit and talk with him. And Stephanie was such a monumental, instrumental part in getting me to give my life to Christ. And none of that would have been possible if Stephanie hadn't just walked in obedience and obeyed and surrendered to God. So as much as I struggle with this, seeing these examples of my very mature Christian friends who have don't have the same problems that I do with it, seeing the results of it is so cool, because I wouldn't be a Christian right now if Stephanie hadn't just obeyed the Spirit's leading. And I wouldn't even be considering giving up all these worldly habits and all this bad shit that I'm doing that I love so much if Karl hadn't just obeyed. So I guess it's very much a testament to like what God can accomplish if you'll get out of his way and just do as you're told. And just be quiet and follow the Spirit's leading and follow where God is taking you. But that is probably a longer conversation with Karl. And maybe I could get real lucky and get Dan on the podcast. Wouldn't that be just the bee's knees? That's something to think about. But anyway, this is the end of the scripted portion of the podcast. I ran out of gas here, honestly. And I just kind of wrote, like, that was a lot of words to write about Karl. To be honest, I'm going to have to get her approval to post this. And I will, because here we are. I think we're at 44 minutes now just talking about Karl. So it's definitely one where I need to send it to Karl. And before I even consider posting it, I have to get Karl's approval to post it. So, if y'all never hear this, you'll never know that you didn't hear it, because Karl would have told me I can't post it. So, yeah, as much as I want to say, like, well, we'll move away from the faith-based ones, guys, like, back to the normal shit next week or next episode. But, like, I can't say that. I don't know. the ideas for the episodes are the ideas for the episodes, and they just kind of come to me randomly, and it's this thought that strikes me, and I go, oh, that's something I could probably turn into something. So I can't really predict what my stupid brain is gonna, not stupid, my silly little brain is gonna throw my way, because my brain loves to throw curveballs when I least expect it. So for now, I will leave you guys with that little outro of which will mean nothing to you if you're not a Christian, when honestly will probably sound crazy to you if you're not a Christian, but it'll make a lot of sense if you are a Christian. And if you're not a Christian, again, I would just encourage you, like, if anything I've said in any of these past episodes where I am talking about the faith is something that interests you, and you know what, you're in my city, Calgary, Alberta, and this is something that you want to explore, like, reach out to me. I am more than happy to bring you with me to the church, and you can meet some people, and it'll be no pressure. Like, everybody's real friendly. Despite what I've said about people nagging me, like, everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome, and everybody should come. And I know the leader of I don't know what the name of the team is. They're the people who work with the new Christians, like brand new, to kind of help them as they take their first steps. I know the girl that runs that team, and she is a blessing. You would be lucky to have her help you. So, but yes, if you are in my city and you hear this and you kind of have any passing interest in kind of exploring this, I would recommend it. And yeah, reach out. You can leave a note in the comment box on the Spotify episode page. You can send me an email at the podcast email, and I'll get back to you. Like, you are more than welcome, and everybody should come, because, well, I can't think of a because, but but yeah, that will be that. My proselytizing is done now. End of the episode housekeeping. Wherever you listen to the episode, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating. I'm not going to fight you for 5 stars. Give it whatever you think it deserves, but apparently a rating helps. A rating and a review help the show somehow. I don't know how, but we're not big enough yet, but might as well get a jump start on it. So if you have the time and you wouldn't mind, throw a rating and a review up on whatever your preferred listening platform is. Apple Podcast seems to get the most traction, honestly. I looked at the analytics again for the second time today. Was kind of blown away by the numbers on there. So, but if you listen on Spotify, on the episode page at the bottom, there is the Q&A section. It'll say something along the lines of, what did you think of this episode? Because I'm too lazy to change it. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, comments, you can head on down there and fill it out. And if I remember to check it, I'll get back to you eventually. Or we'll address it on the show, one of the two. And for everything else, the podcast has an email. It is dumbereveryday42@gmail.com. Name of the show, 42@gmail.com. Send me all your questions, concerns, comments, criticisms, thoughts. Don't be rude. Well, you can be a little rude. Just like, don't come in hot and tell me to kill myself, because that's a little bit rude. And like I always say, like, if you have something you need to talk about that you feel that you can't talk about with anybody in your life and you're struggling, I'm happy to listen. You can write it out, and we can go back and forth. I can talk about it on the show. Even writing it out might help. I find sometimes it's just the act of writing it out helps me release a lot of that. So never, ever feel like you're alone. If you listen to this podcast, I am more than happy to talk with anyone about anything. So don't ever feel like you're alone. There's always someone who is happy to chat with you, and I am one of them. So on that pseudo-depressing note, I hope you all have a great morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is for you, and I will catch you, Mob, in the next episode. Hooroo.